When it comes to literature, European literature is the best. As stated by Encyclopedia Britannica, as diverse as they are, European literatures like European languages are parts of a common heritage. The stark fact about ancient Western literature is that the bulk of it has died. Before, it was possible to commit it to writing. Some of it had been forgotten due to fire, war, and ravages of time robbed much of the rest of posterity. And the restitution that archaeologists and paleographers accomplish from time to time is minimal. Works like the Epic of Gilgamesh, which was the world's oldest epic, the Code of Hammurabi, the world's first codified law, the sacred scriptures of the Jews, was preserved. Then came the beginning of medieval ages, also known as the Dark Age, which was marked by the barbarian invasion and Muslim conquests due to the prevailing conditions during this time. Stories like King Arthur by Geoffrey of Monmouth, Norse mythology of Norse tradition, and City of God by Saint Augustine of Hippo were born in this era. There are a lot more of this from my country. See, I told you, Western literature is the best.
You almost forgot. The Philippines were colonized by the West, and because of this influence of culture, I think we have what it takes to be on par with yours. Even better, I believe nothing beats the diversity and richness of Philippine literature in terms of culture. The Philippines, even a small country, before the colonial period of Spain already developed forms of literature that revolve around the creation of the world, community, and life, such as chants, myths, native riddles, proverbs, folk songs, epic, which today are still alive. And even with the influence of the Western culture, we managed to preserve our literary heritage, yet we also embrace the differences brought and cultivated new forms of literature that I think is the best. According to Ortega Christine, the representative of Central and Northern Mindanao in the National Literary Arts Committee of the NCAA, European power helped shape our literature, introducing religious and secular prose and poetry, while American colonization brought new literary forms highlighting the writer's individuality. Nowadays, contemporary writers often consciously draw inspirations and ideas from periods before them, having themes that revolve around superstitions, Christianity, injustice, rebellion, love for the country, to novels about love, culture, arts, youth, and technological advancements. A diverse and rich history indeed.
I'll prove to you that Western literature is better by providing you a list of famous writers and books. One notable writer abroad is Victor Hugo. His best-known work is Les Miserables. Hugo is remembered in France as a great poet, one of the most important Romantic-era authors of the nation, and as a symbol of French republicanism, thanks in part to a modern musical. Finally, the most well-known writer of all time, William Shakespeare. He is a playwright, author, and actor. Shakespeare's work, written for a London theatre company, saw him as one of the great dramatists of the world. He achieved popularity in his lifetime, but for works such as Hamlet, Macbeth, Romeo and Juliet, and as well as his sonnets. He has gone on to ever greater and wider appreciation. Perhaps surprisingly, while we know a lot about him, there's a persistent current of people who deny that he has published his works. Do you have a well-known writers like ours in your country?
Of course, we have countless of them. First, our very own national hero, a prolific writer, poet, and essayist, Dr. Jose Rizal's two novels, No Le Metangere and El Filibusterismo, originally written in Spanish, were fictions that revealed the injustices of Spanish colonization. It is best known for his political writings that inspired the Philippine Revolution and have influenced Filipino writers ever since. Also, we have Nick Joaquin, a national artist for literature, best known for his works written in English. One of his well-known works is The Women Who Had Two Navels, where it was said that the two navels of Connie, the protagonist, symbolizes inheritance of a dual identity, her being a child of two worlds, Spanish and American, encompassing events in the Philippines after World War II. Our authors may not be as popular as yours, but the depth of their works embodying the country's experiences is incomparable. Did European literature also have revolutionary novels like this? If so, what do you think is the impact towards your country and the world?
In contemporary society, the influence of literature is undeniable. For each individual author, literature acts as a medium of speech. Some books mirror culture and help us to better understand the world in which we live. The aesthetics of existential reality and reason are synonymous with Western literature. Concerning interpersonal relationships and family ethics, Western literature seeks to dichotomize these topics as human sins versus redemption, human imagination versus alienation. There are various individuals within each time frame, and within them, different phases in our ever-growing society. Before, each person was a result of their own time. We grow as a species every day, and we would not know much about the past without the timestamp that literature offers us. How about yours?
Dr. Cerizal chose the power of his pen to address social issues. Thus, according to Macasantos, Francis, and Priscilla, both garnered Palanca Literary Award. Rizal's patriotic novels inevitably concludes the campaign for liberal reforms, such as the propaganda movement. The two novels, No Limitangere and Filibusterismo, so vividly portrayed corruption and oppression that despite the lack of any clear advocacy, they served to ignite conviction to start the revolution. Indeed, a historical portrayal of the significance of literature in the country, which then led to our freedom from 333 years of oppression. In addition, through studying the Philippine literature, we were able to comprehend our history, treasuring our culture and tradition. Moreover, authors like Jose Garcia Villa, Angela Manalang Gloria, Paz Marquez Benitez, Filipino writers during the American colonization gave a new definition of literature. And while the Spanish colonization had Filipinos turn into writing to voice their thoughts against oppression, the American period had allowed writers to seek and explore their individuality, integrate the new significance of literature, not just to inform, but also to entertain.
You know what? Why are you even fighting?
You started it first, saying yours was best.
My apologies. Now I heard how great your country's literature is too. Why don't we just talk about our similarities and differences?
I think that's a great idea.
I have noticed that due to the vast history of literature in Europe, only little could be seen of similarities between Europe and the Philippines. Similarities, however, can be seen in the theme of religion. After all, most of the people in Europe and the Philippines adhere to Christianity. Evidence of this could be seen in the artwork of Saint Catherine of Alexandria by Raphael, the Entombment or Christ being carried to his tomb by Michelangelo, and the Last Supper by the great Leonardo da Vinci. Religion has been a main theme during the Renaissance period, especially in Italy. In the Philippines, the most notable is the Florati at Laura by Francisco Balantas, and the lesser-known Gaspar Aquino de Balen's Mahal na Pasyon ni Jesu Cristo.
I agree! Another similarity is evident from this theme of Ibong Adarna, love, which could also be seen in Lope K. Santos' Banaag at Sikat and Mayday Eve of Dick Joaquin. Contrary to the European literature, Homer's Iliad shows a theme of love and of course, the famous Romeo and Juliet by William Shakespeare. Last theme of similarity would be of political corruption or the abuse of power as seen in No Limitangere and El Filibusterismo of the Philippine national hero Cerizal and To Europe's Utopia by Thomas More. In approaches, however, both share differences in the methods and techniques used in the creation of literature. Historical biological approach, for an example, is widely used in novels in Philippine literature such as No Limitangere and El Filibusterismo of Cerizal and Juan Luna's Polarium, as examining these pieces convey the hardships that Filipino went through during the Spanish era, and it assumed that these pieces are a reflection of their time. Such pieces reveal the life as well as the history of the authors with regards to the date of publication, while moral philosophical approach is used in European literature, well in the form of stories such as Little Red Riding Hood as documented in the 11th century in Belgium. Both European and Philippine literature share an approach as Marxism. This can be used with the same example to Jose Rizal's No Limitangere and El Filibusterismo and John Moore's Utopia.
I definitely agree with you also. And I think reasons for the differences are obvious as Europe is quite a large continent and Philippines is just a country. And the fact that there is quite distance between the two. Reasons for similarity, however, are evident due to the voyages conducted by Europeans during the 15th century. The researchers believe that it is due to the Spanish colonization that the Philippines and Europe share similar themes and approaches. Another thing that made European and Philippine literature similar was the birth of the digital era. Modernization, which transferred rural areas to urban areas, would make it easier for writers to connect and study other countries' literature because of easier access via the internet. You know what? Learning about your country's literature is interesting.
Right? It is fun to learn about yours too. I didn't know we had such similarities.
At least we know that there is no such thing as the best literature. All have history and importance worth discovering and sharing for.